FBI agents or personnel associated with Trump investigations? Yes or no?
I'm not aware of that,
Thank you.
Senator.
There is no evidence of wrongdoing by FBI employees involved in these investigations. If you do pursue investigations of those involved, will you commit to using standard processes, including a standard review by the FBI Inspections Division and the Inspector General?
Senator, I will honor all those review processes.
You will honor those review processes.
Yes, Senator.
If these are actions that the FBI employees, if there are actions against FBI employees that do not follow those standards process that happen before you get in, will you commit to reversing any decision prior to your arrival so that those standard processes and the standard review by the FBI Inspections Division will take place?
I don't know what's going on right now over there, but I'm committed to you, Senator, and your colleagues that I will honor the internal review process of the FBI.
Have you made any commitments to anyone about pursuing any investigations or targets if you are FBI director?
Only violent criminals and terrorists.
Have you had any conversations with anyone on the transition team about pursuing any investigations or targets?
Only following the Constitution.
Again, are you certain?
That I've told people on the
Are you certain? Have you had any conversations with anyone on the transition team about pursuing any investigations or targets?
Senator, to the best of my recollection, I've only said I will use the Constitution.
Have you discussed specific investigations or targets you would pursue as FBI director with the President of the United States?
Senator, to the best of my recollection, no.
Are you certain?
To the best of my recollection, no.
According to public reports, you were subpoenaed by the federal prosecutors to testify as a witness before the grand jury investigation investigating the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case. And you testified before the grand jury, correct?
Yes, sir.
And when you were before the grand jury, you pled the fifth on the basis of self-incrimination, correct?
I utilized my constitutional rights during that process with the advice and consent of counsel and appeared before that grand jury.
I will take that as a yes. And you are familiar, I imagine, with section 6002 of Title 18.
Off the top of my head, Senator, not.
Well, section 6002 is the immunity statute. Whenever a witness refuses to testify or provide other information before a grand jury based upon the privilege against self-incrimination, the court can order the witness to testify. The witness must comply with the order, but they receive immunity, which means that no testimony or any other information provided before the grand jury can be used against them in any criminal proceeding. You were compelled to testify as a witness in the Mar-a-Lago classified document case. Did you participate in any criminal conduct involved in that case?
Involved in which, the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case?
Yes.
No, I testified through compulsion by court order.
You received immunity for providing information that was self-incriminating. Do you remember the name of the prosecutor who questioned you?
There were multiple, Senator. I do not.
Was it one of the people, were any of them people that were fired this past week?
I have no idea, Senator.
Are you certain? You're under oath.
I'm aware that I'm under oath, Senator, and I have no idea, and I did not participate in the removal of any DOJ prosecutor.
What was the information you provided that you received immunity for?
Senator, I would love my grand jury testimony to be released, but as you know, that grand jury testimony has been sealed by the Department of Justice. I'm not allowed to discuss it here.
Well, I find it troubling that you do not know the law here. And let me tell you what the law is. Rule 6 governs grand jury proceedings. Under Rule 6E, grand jurors, court reporters, and prosecutors are bound to secrecy. But witnesses are not bound by secrecy. You were a witness in the classified documents case. You are not bound by secrecy. You can tell us everything that happened in that room and everything you testified about. I'll ask you again, what information did you provide to the grand jury?
In this, we are agreement, Senator. Get my grand jury testimony. I want it made public. I asked the Department of Justice to make it public, and they refused to do so.
There is no legal bound against you telling us right now what you testified to.
When I asked for my transcript to be released,
Sir, did you or did you not commit a crime?
Senator, I did not commit a crime.
Then why won't you tell us what you testified to?
Because it occurred over the course of 3 weeks. I don't have the ability to recall everything I testified to, but I'm asking you to put my
Did you testify
transcript
to
out.
witnessing the President of the United States declassifying documents?
Senator, what I testified to is best captured by that transcript.
So you're not willing to tell Congress, after making many pledges today about transparency, whether or not you testified to witnessing the President of the United States declassify documents. In the name of all the values you have said today, did you or did you not testify to witnessing the President of the United States declassify documents?
I testified accordingly and under oath, and I encourage you to get that transcript.
And by the law of our land, you are free to tell people, what are you hiding from Congress? Answer the question. Did you testify to witnessing the President of the United States declassifying documents, yes or no?
Senator, the grand jury testimony is available to you. I encourage you to make it public.
As you likely know, the second volume of Jack Smith's report about the classified document case is not public yet. To fulfill our constitutional duty of advice and consent, the President, on nominations, members of this committee have asked the DOJ to review the report. Do you agree that Congress should thoroughly review its nominees? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Now, last question and I'll be done. When you and I met, you told me that you wanted to remove 11,000 FBI personnel or move many of them, and you said that again today. You have looked at an org chart to understand what offices and functions that you'll be pulling from. I don't think you've done a serious analysis, but I do think you have an assignment from Donald Trump to gut the FBI. You said yourself, I'll shut down the FBI Hoover building. There are people specifically that you are targeting, I believe. And do you agree that you have already prepared plans to remove certain individuals from their offices? For example, individuals that will be replaced by political personnel. The political personnel that are being put in an institution that you and I discussed that has no political appointees but one, the political personnel involve these names: Erica Knight, Tom Ferguson,
You stated your question. Would you answer? Or don't you want to? Okay.
We can move on.
Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Patel, there is absolutely no doubt that you have the experience and the expertise to lead the FBI, and we welcome you here today. We are pleased that you are here. I've been listening to my colleagues across the dais and listening to their questions, and it has led me to one thing. Why are the Democrats so afraid of you?
I don't know, Senator. You'd have to ask them.
Well, I tell you what I think, and listening to their questions and your responses, which we appreciate, they know that you're going to go in and you're going to clean up that political cabal that has been over there for years. You are going to reposition the FBI to its core mission. You stated that earlier in this hearing, and there will be no more political persecutions and no more 2 tiers of justice. And they have liked having 2 tiers of justice. They have enjoyed it, and it has helped them, they think, in their political mission. They've enjoyed targeting Catholics. They've enjoyed targeting parents. But the American people have said they want no more of that. And our colleagues know you're going to clean it up. I want to talk to you about the Epstein case. I have worked on this for years, trying to get those records of who flew on Epstein's plane and who helped him build this international human trafficking, sex trafficking ring. Now, earlier, I urged then Chairman Durbin to subpoena those records, and I ended up being blocked by Senator Durbin and Christopher Wray. They stonewalled on this, and I know that breaking up these trafficking rings is important to President Trump. So will you work with me on this issue so we know who worked with Jeffrey Epstein in building these sex trafficking rings?
Absolutely, Senator. Child sex trafficking has no place in the United States of America, and I will do everything, if confirmed as FBI director, to make sure the American public knows the full weight of what happened in the past and how we are going to countermand missing children and exploited children going forward.
Thank you for that. I do want to touch on the political persecution. I find it so interesting that they feel like you would carry out political persecution. Your parents are with us today. They fled Uganda and persecution from Idi Amin. And I think that with your background and given your family's history, that you would never move to political persecution. Is that accurate?
Yes, Senator, that is.
And we appreciate that you would remove any kind of 2 tiers of justice from the FBI because they have practiced that every day for years. Not all FBI agents, there are some good ones, and we certainly want to keep them, but the politics has got to be moved out of the agency. Now, they've tried to frame you as being anti-police. We've discussed that some today. And I know that you grew up working with NYPD officers in your community. And I know that law enforcement groups, including the National Association of Police Organizations, have endorsed your nomination. And on top of that, your brother is a law enforcement officer. Is that accurate?
Many of my family are, yes, Senator.
How many of your family, sir?
Well, I guess the Indians have a different definition of family. We got a really big one, and they're all family.
We all love big families.
So we got a lot.
I appreciate that. But it is accurate to say that in your role, you're going to do everything that you possibly can to protect the men and women who are protecting our communities.
That is of the utmost importance.
Thank you. I want to go to the Nunes memo. You were the principal author of the Nunes memo. Is that accurate?
Yes, me and staff.
Thank you. And that did really so much to focus the light on the Russiagate hoax and the political cabal that was for years operated out of the DOJ and the FBI. And I know that there are some that felt like that memo was not accurate. We know now differently. And I'm quoting a comment that was made about that memo and by a member of that House Intel Committee, and I quote, "It was meant only to give Republican House members a distorted view of the FBI," end quote. I find it so interesting. They use the term distorted view. I think the American people who for 4 years under Biden saw the FBI weaponized against them, against parents, against people of faith, weaponized against President Trump. I think they would disagree with that. Do you stand by the good work that you did on the Nunes memo?
Our team, and yes, absolutely.
And the Nunes memo was accurate in its description of the details, correct?
As confirmed by the Inspector General, the Special Counsel, because the Nunes memo only contains sworn information received pursuant to transcribed interviews and production of government materials, including FBI 302s and DOJ memorandum.
So the Nunes memo is accurate.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for that. In your new role as director, how will you work to root out 2 tiers of justice at the FBI?
The same way I have always done so, ma'am, with the utmost fidelity to the Constitution and integrity to law enforcement. Government must allow those who are privileged to serve to execute their law enforcement duties fully, but at the same time, the American people deserve accountability inwards to government, to any of those who violate that sacred trust.
And as you prepare to take this new role, what are the top areas of concern for you as we look at our national security?
The top areas when it comes to national security, ma'am, have remained unchanged and the threat dynamic has increased. It's thwarting terrorist activities and terrorist attacks here and overseas against our citizens and our allies. And it also includes CCP espionage, which is running rampant these last 5 years through our country, including our cyber infrastructure and our agricultural properties. And it also includes taking on Iran, the #1 state sponsor of terror, and any other adversary that wishes to harm America.
Thank you. I look forward to a yes vote on your confirmation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Padilla.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, yes.
since the senator from Tennessee raised my name, I'd like to respond.
Please go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, while I was chair of the committee, protecting children from sexual exploitation was one of our highest priorities. We chaired hearings on kids' online safety, and we decided on a bipartisan basis to call the big tech CEOs in for an important, maybe historic meeting of this committee. Last year, the committee reported 6 bipartisan bills to help protect child safety online, including one of my own, Stop CSAM, and Senator Blackburn's Report Act. In the previous Congress, Senator Blackburn and I led legislation that was signed into law that eliminated statutes of limitation for federal civil suits by survivors of childhood sex abuse. I've worked to ensure the DOJ's unethical non-prosecution agreement with Jeffrey Epstein is investigated. As I've argued in this committee, my Inspector General Access Act would allow the Inspector General to investigate that. Yet, in 2023, I was falsely accused of preventing releasing the names of Jeffrey Epstein's network by Mr. Patel, when my Republican colleagues prevented Senator Blackburn from offering an amendment to the flight logs. Prior to the committee's November 9th, 2023 Supreme Court ethics subpoena markup, Senator Blackburn had never raised Epstein's flight logs with me publicly or privately. During the November 30th, 2023 Supreme Court ethics subpoena authorization markup, I tried to recognize her multiple times, but there was an effort to close down the committee before any further business went forward on the Republican side. Many Epstein records, including flight logs, have been public for years. My office subsequently reached out to hers to try to identify what record she was actually seeking. We did not receive a response.
Mr. Chairman, if I may respond to Chairman Durbin. I had raised the issue with Chairman Durbin. I had raised it on the floor that we wanted to get these records. And then during that hearing that you're recognizing, sir, or that you're mentioning, I sought recognition. It was not my Republican colleagues that ended that hearing. Mr. Chairman, you had the gavel and you were the chairman and you sought not to recognize me. And I know, and you know, and so many people are aware, sir, that you and Christopher Wray did not want those out. And I know we need to move on for questions, but Mr. Chairman, we have fought this issue for quite some time. I look forward to having an FBI that will work to help get these records and end this human and sex trafficking in this country.
15 seconds.
Yes, go ahead.
The senator from Tennessee knows what the 2-hour rule is. 2-hour rule takes the gavel out of the chairman's hands, and that was what was being executed when you were seeking recognition and being executed by your side of the aisle.
Senator Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, as we know, it's not just the nominee for FBI director that's before us today, but there's been a lot of chaos and confusion this week in regards to executive orders that have been issued as it pertains to the federal budget, federal spending, hiring freezes, etc. But relevant to this confirmation hearing, colleagues, the FBI has paused its new academy classes while they assess how the firing freeze impacts them. President Trump's executive orders has a national security exception, but it is unclear how it will apply to agencies like the FBI. The FBI has a large civilian employee population, so it's not certain if they will qualify for exceptions. The White House memo stated that nearly 1,000 probationary FBI employees would stay on only if, quote, justified, without clarity on a timetable or process for justification. Mr. Patel, how does this help or does this hurt the FBI improving public safety in America?
Senator, I know about as much as this late breaking news as you do by reading it in the media, and I will say the following in terms of FBI employees, if I'm confirmed. FBI employees represent the front line of defense for national security and crime. And if I'm confirmed, I will ensure that all FBI graduates of the academy will be protected and funded so that we can continue the fight together.
But would you agree that even just causing a pause or confusion in being able to grow the ranks is not helpful to public safety in America?
Not having a law enforcement there.
Thank you. 7 minutes goes by fast. So I want to get to as many topics as I can. As you know, the FBI plays a critical role in national security and public safety. Yet the reports are that this hiring freezes is damaging. I want to submit for the record, Mr. Chairman, a New York Times article outlining the questions and concerns I just stated. Now, on to the next topic. FBI agents rely on their leadership to ensure their safety and success of operations. As Senior Director for Counterterrorism at the National Security Council, you were involved in a SEAL team rescue mission to recover a 27-year-old American hostage in Nigeria. According to former Secretary of Defense Mark Esper, you falsely informed senior leadership that the United States had secured permission to fly over other nations' airspace en route to Nigeria. This misinformation forced the aircraft to circle the border for an additional hour, potentially jeopardizing the mission's success and putting service members at undue risk. Can you explain your decision to falsely claim airspace permissions had been secured for the mission?
I greatly appreciate this. This is one that hits home squarely because my guys, my friends, were on that operation. They were in that helo. They were in that V-22. And there's never a time in my career that it would jeopardize the safety of the men and women in uniform. And if you ask the National Security Advisor of the President of the United States, who's with me on that day, who has gone on the record publicly, as has General Tony Tata, who's the Undersecretary of Defense, they have both stated with affirmation that I acted appropriately, relayed all information accurately, and never jeopardized the safety of the hostages. And our men were on the ground for 59 seconds and executed 6 sentries and rescued an American hostage named Phil Walton, and he's home today with his family because of it.
So your friend's word versus the former Secretary of Defense, that's what we're going to be asked to consider. Next topic. In September of 2024, just a couple of months ago, you stated that Chris Wray was caught illegally using 702 collection against Americans 274,000 times. That's a quote. And you criticized Congress for failing to implement necessary reforms when reauthorizing Section 702. Now, earlier in this hearing, I heard you respond to Senator Cornyn's questions and saying that the improvements to FISA 702 accountability go a long way. That's what you said today, earlier, on the record and under oath. But on that September podcast that I'm referring to, you said that by passing the reauthorization bill, Republicans, quote, bent the knee. So which is it? They bent the knee and didn't reform 702 as you would suggest, or that they've gone a long way?
Senator, as I've talked about extensively with my experience with 702, it is a necessary tool to protect this country. The FISA court themselves issued the report you're referring to about the illegal searches. They found 270-some thousand violations. So I think we need it, and I think we need to work with Congress to reform it.
Let me rephrase my question more bluntly. Which is your opinion on the most recent reauthorization of 702? That Republicans bent the knee for not insisting or adopting significant reforms, or that reforms have gone a long way? Because they seem like contradictory statements.
702 is a critical tool, and I'm proud of the reforms that have been implemented, and I'm proud to work with Congress moving forward to implement more reforms.
So you bent the knee, but now you're proud of it. Got it. Next topic. I know you've been asked about the J6 prison choir prior in this hearing. My question is not going to rehash previous questions. Funds have been raised, as you explained to me in our meeting last week, to support families of insurrectionists, my words clearly not yours, that have been in jail, including those who committed acts of violence against police officers. I want to know, in any of your work around the J6 prison choir, was any of the funds that were raised used to support the families of the police officers who were brutally attacked by the insurrectionists?
Senator, my foundation has used funds
Yes
to
or
help
no?
police
It's a yes or no.
officers across the country.
It's a yes or no.
I don't know if those officers' families applied for a grant. That's how we distribute at a charity. Based on who comes
That
in.
tells me a lot about your care and prioritization of the police officers you claim to support,
They've
because
given away over $500,000 to law enforcement and
but
active
you
duty
can't
militaries.
articulate. I mean, you were able to articulate to me examples of the families of January 6th insurrectionists, because the
Your
insurrectionists
words,
in
not
jail, you're
mine.
supporting the families, but you can't, say clearly and confidently that families of police officers who were brutally attacked got similar support. Next topic.
Your time's up.
Okay, I'll save it for the second round. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Before I call on Senator Schmidt, I have a letter that I want to put in regard to this Nigerian rescue story. It's from General Tata. What people that bring this up don't tell you is that General Tata has denied the exchange reported in the Atlantic and has forcefully defended Mr. Patel. General Tata said, "I never heard the words that somebody's saying they heard from me. That's not a quote from me," end of quote. General Tata wrote to the committee and said it was, quote, irresponsible, end quote, to say Mr. Patel jeopardized the mission. He said, quote, Kash played a critical role in that and many other successes during his tenure, precisely because he cares so deeply about America, its national domestic security, and her citizens. So by unanimous consent, I will put this letter in the record. Any disagreement? I hear none. Senator Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's good to see you, Mr. Patel. It's great to have your family here. I know they must be very proud. I have to tell you, I saw up close and personal how politically weaponized the FBI had become. In my former job as Attorney General of Missouri, we brought the Missouri versus Biden lawsuit, which uncovered this vast censorship enterprise where the federal government coerced and colluded with some of the biggest companies in the history of the world to suppress speech. And not just that, actually to pre-bunk the Hunter Biden laptop story. The FBI had the laptop in November of 2019. They met with senior executives. Yoel Roth, who was the main guy at Twitter at the time, signed an affidavit saying they were talking specifically about the laptop. It could be Hunter Biden's, pre-bunking it, calling it a Russian hack and leak operation. They knew it was true. They knew it was his laptop. So the rot is deep, and the time for you is now. And I'm glad, because reform is needed. Senator Durbin referenced your book. I think it's